2 years ago, Greg Popovich sat at a preseason press conference and casually dropped 11 words about a 19-year-old rookie who had just shot only 26% from three at UConn. Most people barely noticed it. The few who did mostly laughed it off. One analyst actually agreed with Popovich and instantly got cooked online for the take. Now look where things stand today. The Spurs are back in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2017.
You saw them dogs out there. You saw them dogs out there.
Okay.
And it started with Stephon Castle. I didn't know whether to call him a Doberman or a pit bull, the way they sicked him on SGA today. And he the one that really, yes, Wemby was the best player on the floor, but Stephon Castle actually set the tone from the jump with his physicality.
Victor Wembanyama already looks like the next face of the NBA. Dylan Harper has turned into exactly what San Antonio hoped for. And right in the middle of everything, quietly making it all connect, is Stephon Castle. Yeah, that same Stephon Castle people doubted before he even played an NBA game. The same guy critics called a Swiss Army knife because nobody knew what position he really fit at. The same player some scouts said should never be trusted as a full-time point guard. And now, he's become the glue holding the whole operation together. Castle isn't always the loudest name on the roster, but he's the piece that keeps the Spurs machine moving. Every smooth possession, every defensive stop, every moment where this young Spurs core suddenly looks dangerous again can be traced back to one thing. Popovich saw it before almost everybody else. Pop was right about Stephon Castle. When San Antonio drafted Wemby, the entire basketball world already knew what he was supposed to become: a franchise superstar. The centerpiece. The kind of player organizations spend decades trying to find. But inside the Spurs building, they also understood something rebuilding teams usually learned the hard way. One superstar alone doesn't magically bring winning basketball back. A rebuild needs structure around the star. It needs role players, defenders, creators, guys willing to do the dirty work every single night. Most teams in that situation start chasing another flashy star through trades and headlines. The Spurs took a completely different route. During Wemby's rookie season, San Antonio leaned fully into the rebuild and finished with a brutal 22-60 record, the fifth worst in the league. Then the lottery balls bounced their way again, pushing them up to the fourth pick in the 2024 NBA draft. But unlike the year before, this draft was messy. The 2023 draft had one obvious prize everybody agreed on for years. Victor Wembanyama was the clear future. The 2024 class? Total chaos. No guaranteed superstar, no obvious franchise changer, no player scouts fully agreed on. Teams were split all over the board, but the Spurs never wavered. They were locked in on one guy from the beginning: Stephon Castle. Castle entered the draft as a 6'6" guard fresh off a national championship run at UConn, where he played a huge role helping the Huskies win back-to-back titles. His stats looked solid too: 11.1 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 2.9 assists while shooting 47% from the field. A lot of what he did screamed reliable NBA starter. Still, every scouting report circled back to the same problem over and over again: the jumper. Castle shot just 27% from three at UConn, and for a modern NBA guard, that number scared people badly. Defenses constantly sagged off him, practically begging him to shoot. Most nights, he couldn't punish them for it. There was another concern hanging over him too. At UConn, Castle spent a ton of time playing off the ball because the roster was loaded with experienced veterans. Scouts rarely got a clean look at him actually running an offense full-time as the primary playmaker. That created a huge debate leading into the draft. Could Stephon Castle really become a lead guard in the NBA? Could a player shooting 27% from deep consistently create offense at the highest level? A lot of teams looked at those questions and backed away fast. The Spurs didn't. Instead of focusing only on what Castle couldn't do yet, San Antonio focused on what he could eventually become. At pick number 4, they took the gamble. And here's what makes this even more interesting. Greg Popovich almost never hands out easy praise, especially to young players. He's known for being brutally honest. No fake hype, no sugarcoating, no protecting feelings. So when Summer League rolled around and Castle dropped 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists against Portland, people paid attention to what Pop said afterward. "I love his seriousness for such a young kid. I love his pace." You see, his expression never changes. He doesn't go too fast, doesn't go too slow. He reads the situations, he seeks contact. He's an excellent defender, and he makes wonderful decisions. He's going to be a quick study, I think, and he's going to play on the court pretty quickly. From most coaches, that sounds like normal off-season praise. Coming from Popovich, that was loud. Once training camp opened in September, the praise around Stephon Castle got even louder. Greg Popovich doubled down fast. I'm very impressed. Really mature young man, has a great demeanor, good basketball IQ. He's strong, he learns quickly, he's a good one. He can play 1, 2, or 3 right now. Those last 6 words ended up meaning everything. At the time, a lot of people thought Pop sounded completely out of pocket. A guard who shot just 27% from 3 in college was supposed to struggle badly in today's NBA. Players without reliable shooting usually don't become offensive centerpieces, especially in a league built around spacing and shot creation. But Popovich clearly wasn't viewing Castle like a normal point guard prospect. He saw something different entirely, not just a scorer, not just a playmaker. He saw a connector, a player who could move between positions, make smart decisions, defend multiple matchups, and keep the offense flowing without needing the ball every second. 2 years later, that vision looks almost spooky. Castle has already logged serious minutes at point guard, shooting guard, and small forward. No matter where San Antonio puts him, the same traits keep showing up over and over again. Patience, physicality, control, defensive toughness, and a natural feel for making plays. And that flexibility became even more important once the Spurs started reshaping the roster around him. When San Antonio traded for De'Aaron Fox at the 2025 trade deadline, people around the league were confused immediately. Then things got even crazier when the Spurs drafted Dylan Harper with the number 2 pick in 2025. Another guard, another creator, another player used to controlling the offense. From the outside, the roster construction looked messy. Inside the Spurs organization, though, the thinking was simple. Pop already told everybody the plan before anyone noticed it. He can play 1, 2, or 3 right now. That line explained everything. If Castle wasn't locked into one position, then the Spurs didn't need the rest of the roster locked into strict positions either. Suddenly, the whole thing made sense. They weren't building around traditional roles, they were building around interchangeable decision-makers. And while San Antonio quietly pieced this together, most of the basketball world still had major doubts about Castle. One ESPN analyst who actually agreed with Popovich ended up getting crushed online for it. Heading into the 2024 draft, Castle carried 3 giant question marks that scouts and fans couldn't stop talking about. The biggest concern was obviously the jumper. Castle shot 26.7% from 3 at UConn. On catch-and-shoot attempts, it dropped to 26.3%. On completely unguarded threes, he hit only 24.4%. Even his off-the-dribble jumper sat at 27.5%, and that came on limited attempts because he still struggled creating separation consistently against set defenses. None of those numbers screamed future NBA shot creator. In fact, they scared teams badly. Then came the second concern, his role. At UConn, Castle wasn't running the entire offense. Tristan Newton handled a huge chunk of the playmaking responsibilities, while Donovan Clingan controlled the paint. Castle often slid into a secondary or even third option role behind players like Newton, Cam Spencer, and Clingan. That left scouts asking a serious question. Could Stephon Castle actually lead an NBA offense full-time, or was he simply going to become a really good complementary player? That uncertainty led to the draft label that followed him everywhere. Swiss Army knife. Good at many things. Elite at nothing. Even major outlets leaned into the doubt. The Ringer summed it up perfectly with the headline, "Stephon Castle can do it all, but can he become a star?" Most of the player comparisons reflected the same hesitation too. Analysts threw around names like R.J. Barrett and Bruce Brown. Useful NBA players, tough competitors, but not franchise-changing stars. Other scouts compared him to the Thompson twins from the previous draft class, but always added the same warning. Castle wasn't viewed as the same level of explosive athlete as Amon or Osar. At the time, those concerns honestly made sense. The shooting numbers looked rough. The offensive role was unclear. The self-creation wasn't polished yet. Even the athletic profile created debate. Usually, those are the exact warning signs that separate role players from future stars. But while the rest of the league focused on everything Castle supposedly couldn't do, the Spurs focused on what he already did better than most young guards: decision-making, versatility, toughness, and winning basketball instincts. And it wasn't just analysts doubting him. Fans were right there too, especially on draft night. During ESPN's draft coverage, Jay Bilas made a comparison that instantly exploded across social media. He said Stephon Castle could eventually become a bigger version of Drew Holiday. The internet lost its mind. At that moment, Drew Holiday had just finished one of the biggest stretches of his career. He played a huge two-way role in helping Boston win banner number 18 in 2024. Before that, he was already viewed as a championship-level guard after helping Milwaukee win the title in 2021. Around the NBA, Holiday had become known as one of the best defensive guards in basketball and one of those rare players who simply make winning easier everywhere they go. So when Bilas compared Castle to that kind of player, it wasn't meant as disrespect at all. It was a projection of the type of impact he believed Castle could eventually have. Twitter completely exploded anyway. The public opinion around Stephon Castle looked almost identical to the scouting reports. Most people saw him as a solid prospect with obvious flaws, not a future star. But now, fast forward to 2026, and those old takes look brutally off target. Castle made the exact kind of offensive leap that changes the way defenses have to game plan against you. And once that happens in the NBA, everything changes. Start with the production. He jumped from 14.7 points per game to 16.7. His rebounds climbed from 3.7 to 5.3. But the biggest jump by far came as a playmaker. His assists exploded from 4.1 per game to 7.4. And the efficiency improved right alongside it. His effective field goal percentage rose from 47.6% to 52.1%, showing that the growth wasn't just volume. He became smarter, sharper, and way more controlled offensively. What makes this even scarier for the league is that his core identity never changed. The defense that made him a top 5 pick in the first place somehow became even nastier. Possessions against Castle feel exhausting now. He pressures ball handlers before they even cross half court. He disrupts passing lanes, bodies up bigger players, and controls the pace of entire possessions with pure effort and positioning. Every game, he looks more and more like the type of guard coaches trust in huge playoff moments. Then came the performances that completely ended the debates. In February, Castle exploded for 40 points, 12 rebounds, and 12 assists against Dallas. It was his second triple-double of the season. By the end of the year, he finished with 4 triple-doubles total, matching the same number Tim Duncan recorded during his entire legendary Spurs career. That stat alone shocked people. Even the biggest weakness from his draft profile started shifting too: the shooting. As a rookie, Castle hit only 28.5% from 3. In year 2, that climbed to 33.2%. Still not elite, but now defenses actually had to respect him instead of ignoring him completely. Then the playoffs arrived, and things got serious fast. Through the first 2 rounds, Castle shot an unbelievable 44% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game. Suddenly, the jumper that scouts criticized nonstop was becoming a real playoff weapon. Game 6 against Minnesota became the true breakout moment. Castle delivered 32 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and knocked down 5 threes in the series, clinching win that pushed San Antonio to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2017. The pressure looked huge, but he played like he belonged there the entire time. Then he followed it up immediately. In Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals against OKC, Castle posted 17 points and 11 assists, becoming the second youngest player in Spurs playoff history to record a points and assists double-double. The only shocking part? He passed Tony Parker to do it. That's not hype anymore. That's real development. The same player people questioned as a shooter, questioned as a creator, and questioned as a true lead guard is now answering all 3 concerns at the exact same time. And because of that, the Drew Holiday comparison suddenly looks very accurate again. Honestly, it might even undersell what Castle is becoming. Now, here's the part where people outside San Antonio probably should have seen this coming. Greg Popovich getting young talent right isn't some random lucky streak. It's basically the backbone of the Spurs dynasty over the last 3 decades. Look at Manu Ginobili. Back in 1999, San Antonio used the 57th pick on a relatively unknown left-handed guard from Argentina. At the time, hardly anybody paid attention to the selection, but the bigger story happened before the draft even started. Popovich aggressively pushed into international scouting long before most NBA teams truly cared about it. While other organizations stayed comfortable, the Spurs searched everywhere for overlooked talent. I blew him away, and we wined him. We dined him. We gave them photo ops. We gave them everything they wanted. That's how we found out about Manu, when nobody else knew about him. That wasn't just scouting. That was belief. And once Pop saw Manu play in person, the conviction only got stronger. The first time I saw him in action, he was perhaps the most fearless competitor I'd seen in a long time. That prediction aged pretty well. From 2004 through 2011, Manu averaged 16.8 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 4.2 assists while helping the Spurs win 4 championships. Eventually, he became a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest international players ever. Then there's Tony Parker, whose Spurs story almost never happened at all. San Antonio drafted Parker with the 28th pick in 2001, but before the draft, his first workout reportedly went so badly that Popovich didn't even want another look at him. Most teams probably would have moved on immediately after that. But inside the Spurs organization, GM Ars Buford and a young scout named Sam Presti kept pushing for Parker anyway. That decision ended up changing franchise history forever. They saw something beyond that terrible workout. The Spurs still took Tony Parker with the 28th pick, and Parker never forgot it. After the draft, he got on the phone with Greg Popovich and told him, "We are going to show all the others that they made a mistake by not taking me." That confidence mattered, because the early development process was brutal. Popovich has openly admitted how hard he pushed Parker during those years. "I should have been arrested for abuse for the things I did to that kid." That was classic Pop. Tough, demanding, relentless. But it worked. Parker eventually became one of the greatest point guards of his era. 4 championships, a Finals MVP, a Hall of Fame career. And once again, the Spurs looked smarter than everybody else. Then came Kawhi Leonard, and honestly, even Popovich wasn't fully convinced at first. When Kawhi entered the draft after 2 seasons at San Diego State, scouts mostly focused on the physical tools: massive hands, strength, rebounding, defense, energy. His offensive game still looked raw, especially his jumper. Pop later admitted how nervous the Spurs were on draft night. "We were all looking at each other like, we really gonna do this? We were scared. We don't know this kid. He's not a shooter. He's not a scorer. He's not a perimeter player. He's a big guy who can rebound." That uncertainty sounds very familiar now, doesn't it? Because once San Antonio drafted Kawhi, they immediately did what the Spurs organization has done better than almost anybody for decades. They developed him. Legendary shooting coach Chip Engelland completely rebuilt Kawhi's jumper from the ground up. At the same time, Popovich gave him a clear identity right away. "You have to be the best defender in the league. You have to be Bruce Bowen times 10. That comparison carried serious weight. Bruce Bowen was already one of the nastiest perimeter defenders of his generation and a huge part of multiple Spurs championship teams. But Kawhi eventually pushed far beyond even that expectation. He won a championship with San Antonio in 2014, then another title with Toronto. 2 Finals MVPs, a future Hall of Fame resume. And it all started because the Spurs believed in traits other teams either overlooked or doubted. That same pattern is happening again with Stephon Castle. Manu Ginobili had the fire and fearlessness. Tony Parker had elite speed and control. Kawhi had unbelievable defensive instincts. Stephon Castle brought something different to the table: versatility. That's the part most people outside San Antonio completely underestimated. Popovich wasn't evaluating Castle as a player trapped into one position. He saw a 19-year-old who could immediately slide between 3 different roles and make winning plays from all of them. A connector. A player built perfectly for read and react basketball. And now the scary part for the rest of the NBA is watching it actually come together in real time. The only sad twist in all of this is that Popovich hasn't been on the sideline to fully watch it unfold. Just 5 games into Castle's rookie season, Pop suffered a stroke and stepped away from coaching. But even without him there every night, his vision for this roster is playing out almost exactly the way he described it years ago. What Pop saw wasn't just one talented prospect. He saw the blueprint for an entire system, and that blueprint is the reason the Spurs suddenly have one of the most dangerous young cores in basketball. It starts with Castle and Victor Wembanyama, the duo now known as Area 51. The nickname comes from their jersey numbers mixed with Wemby's alien-like reputation, and honestly, the chemistry has looked unreal from the start. In the 1,156 minutes they shared the floor this season, San Antonio outscored opponents by a ridiculous plus 17.9 points per 100 possessions. To understand how crazy that number is, it's better than Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray at plus 11, better than Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren at plus 12.6, even slightly ahead of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren at plus 17.7. That's elite company already. And Wemby himself sounds fully aware this partnership could dominate the league for a very long time. It's just the beginning. I hope to spend, 15 years as his teammate, so hopefully we see thousands of lobs. That quote alone should scare the entire Western Conference. But Area 51 isn't the only dangerous partnership developing in San Antonio. There's also the Slash Brothers, the connection between Castle and Dylan Harper. Unlike Golden State's Splash Brothers, this duo isn't built around non-stop three-point shooting. This pairing attacks defenses differently. Relentless drives, constant pressure at the rim, explosive downhill attacks that force defenses to collapse possession after possession. Every playoff game, they keep wearing teams down physically. That chemistry became impossible to ignore during the Minnesota series, and now again against Oklahoma City. Spurs head coach Mitch Johnson described it perfectly. They listen when we tell them stuff, and they get on the court, and they're just like attack dogs, and they just go. That aggression has completely changed the identity of this Spurs roster. Then comes the final piece tying everything together. De'Aaron Fox. Fox's San Antonio experience, pace, leadership, and stability. He calms the offense when things speed up and keeps everybody organized during pressure moments. But the craziest part is how naturally he fits next to Castle and Harper. 3 lead guards, 1 system. No ego battles, no confusion over roles, no awkward fit. Because Castle was never supposed to be boxed into one position in the first place. Popovich already explained the entire vision years ago when he said Castle could play 1, 2, or 3 right now. Now the Spurs are running 3 rotating creators in the same backcourt, and somehow it works beautifully. The offense carried this young group all the way to the Western Conference Finals during their very first real playoff run together. And honestly, that's the part every other team in the league should be nervous about, because if San Antonio already looks this dangerous during version 1 of this core, imagine what happens after a few more years of development together. So make no mistake about what you're watching right now. Area 51, the Slash Brothers, the Spurs returning to the Western Conference Finals. None of it happens without that one preseason quote back in October 2024 that almost everybody ignored. Greg Popovich looked at a 19-year-old Stephon Castle and said he could play 1, 2, or 3 right now. It's the exact same pattern Spurs fans already watched happen with Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Kawhi Leonard. Now it's Stephon Castle's turn. And whether the rest of the NBA wants to admit it or not, Popovich has been proven right way too many times for people to keep doubting him. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Can this Spurs core actually reach the NBA Finals during their first real playoff run together? And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and check out another video on your screen right now.